Hello, Kathy Salisbury, the director of the Ambler Arboretum of Temple University. And today we're going to take a virtual walk through the Colibraro Conifer Garden. And we missed, during our time away from the Arboretum in May, the 10-year birthday of this conifer garden, which was so generously donated by Colibraro Nursery and the Colibraro family. And it continues to this day to be an important teaching space, meeting space, and just a wonderful, wonderful space to visit at the Arboretum. And so this is the sort of outside of the Colibraro Conifer Garden that you see as you're walking up the path into the gardens from the parking lot. And I have to be honest, when I started here as the director of the Ambler Arboretum, I hadn't given much thought to conifers, really. They weren't something that I used a lot in my work previously. And so I didn't really think a lot about them. Of course, as a woody plants instructor, I have to teach them, but then you sort of think of them as individuals. And what I love about this garden and just find so fascinating and so important to tell people who are visiting is that when you think of conifers as a collection or as in combination with each other, they just present these colors and textures that are stunning and interesting throughout the year. And so I'm really thrilled that we have the Colibraro Conifer Garden here and that we can use this as a teaching space, but also as a place for inspiration for our gardeners in the area. The nice thing is there's quite a few plants in here that the deer don't bother. And so we're able to show that off as inspiration also. And so, of course, we have junipers and cedars and false cypress and weeping Alaskan cedars that we teach students look like a wizard in a cloak with a big pointy hat on. There's our weeping Alaskan cedar. We have ground covers. We have, this is primarily conifers, so cone-bearing trees. And if you're not sure about our cones or how to tell plants apart or how to tell their cones, be sure to check out our video on cone fusion, which you can find on YouTube. So it just has all different shapes and textures and colors and heights to the plants, and it just is interesting all year round. Here we have some Amsonia, which is turns yellow in the fall. It's a perennial, gets blue flowers called blue star. And so we do have some herbaceous plants tucked in among the conifers, like these heaths that we have growing now. These bloom from November all the way through till March. So we do have some flowering plants in here. There's a globose blue spruce here, a weeping Atlas cedar, a thundercloud pine. So we have all this collection here. And then you come around to the greenhouse tropical display here. We have a nice crepe myrtle in the center here. And then these tropical plants that are just sort of hanging out here until it's time to go back in for the winter. And sometimes the Ambler Arboretum is called a hidden gem or a best kept secret. And of course, that's not what we want to be at all. We want the public to know about us. We want people to come and visit. We want people to learn about us as a living laboratory, as an outdoor classroom, and as a public garden. And so if we are a hidden space, this is a hidden space within the hidden space that people often don't realize is here. So here we have the greenhouse, the landscape architecture and horticulture greenhouse education and research complex. And so that houses tropical plants and is used for classes. But as we come through here, we see this weeping Taxodium. This is a weeping bald cypress. So this will turn kind of a rusty red orange in the fall, and it'll drop all of its needles and people will think it's dead, but it's not. It's just deciduous. And so here we are inside the conifer garden. And so this is a collection of dwarf conifers. So these are plants that are good for landscape-sized yards, can be used in smaller landscapes, and includes some Japanese maples also. But just please notice the colors and the textures throughout this garden space. I've just really fallen in love with all the possibilities of conifers since I've gotten to know this garden. Here's a golden larch. We have red pines. And as an instructor in woody plants, one of my favorite things about this place, this garden, is that it focuses on dwarf conifers, right? Focuses on dwarf conifers. So we have small versions of big plants. But surrounding the garden, if we take a look up, are full-size versions of these plants. And so this gives us an opportunity to show students why it's important to understand cultivars and sizes and ultimate sizes of landscape plants when they're speccing them in their landscape designs or recommending them to their clients. But also it's good for us to be able to show homeowners what makes sense in their yard. So a great example is this pine right here. This is a globose white pine. And so it stays round. I mean, when you buy it, it's much smaller than this. I mean, this still does need quite a bit of space in a landscape. But when you are considering this option or a white pine, which is this tall tree that's right here, you know, they have two different purposes and two different uses in the landscape. And so it's really important to be able to compare those. And we can do that in the conifer garden. The other things we get to teach about in this garden are about seasons. We get to teach about conifers, of course, and the seasonality of evergreens. So plants that we think are evergreen, sometimes we have this perception that the trees just stay green all the time. And even though the leaves, the deciduous leaves, are changing around us, and we love the reds and oranges and yellows that these plants turn, and we can't wait. And there's even leaf peepers that go out and drive and look for fall color. When we see this color change in our evergreens, we get nervous and we think that something's happening and we think that something's dying or causing a problem. But really, they're also seasonal. And evergreen needles have a lifespan of 2 to 5 years, depending on the species. And here you can see how when the leaves, which needles are, they're needle-shaped leaves, are in the fall, some of them change to yellow and they fall off. They fall off, and the evergreen needles up at the top, the newer growth, stays green. But this is nothing to be concerned about as long as the needles are changing on the interior of the tree and not at the ends of the branches. You can be pretty sure that this is the natural process that just happens in the fall. Then there are some plants like this Pseudolaryx Amabilis, the golden larch, where all of the needles do change yellow in the fall. And you can see it starting to happen on the lower branches here. And that's because this is a deciduous conifer. So not all cone-bearing plants are evergreen. And so here, this plant will change completely golden and just look stunning, and then drop all of its needles all at once, which makes a carpet of needles underneath it. Part of the reason why it does this is because its native habitat is poor soils. And so it needs to make sure it gets some sort of nutrients, and it does that by dropping its needles and providing nutrients. So we have all the different opportunities to teach in this garden, to show examples to the home gardener, and to teach our students all about the possibilities of conifers in the home landscape. So I hope that you will come and visit the Colibraro Conifer Garden when you come and visit the Arboretum. And a video at this time of the year, so it's the end of September here in the Arboretum, a video at this time of the year would not be complete without mentioning the Katsura Tree, because you can smell the Katsura Tree throughout the gardens. And the Katsura Tree is one of my favorite plants. And the reason why I love it so much is, well, heart-shaped leaves, so that's pretty great. Little scalloped edges on these heart-shaped leaves. Fruits that look like little miniature hands of bananas, but also this great yellow color. And what is my favorite part of this tree is that when it starts to change fall color, it emits this fragrance into the atmosphere that smells like sugar cookies, or some people describe it as cotton candy, or some vanilla baking. And it is just so pleasant an aroma. And what I love about it, besides that it smells really good, is that nobody is sure why this tree does this. And so it's an answer that you can't find on Google. And so there's all kinds of theories, but nobody is certain. And so we have a number of these trees, the Cercidophyllum japonicum, the Japanese Katsura tree, around the Arboretum. And at this time of the year, wherever you go, you can smell them. And you know that one's around you because you smell the sweet scent in the air. And so remember, when you're here visiting the Conifer Garden, or wherever you end up in your travels in the Arboretum, if you're here in the fall, take a smell. Use your senses of smell and sight and touch as you explore the garden. So thank you for visiting with us on this virtual tour of another garden space. We hope to see you in the garden soon. Take good care. Visit us at arboretum.temple.edu for more information about ongoing programs and other activities and events we have scheduled for the rest of this year and into next.